You guys remember that video I did called Why I Am What I Am? That was a video that pretty much told why I became a real-life superhero and my journey to becoming a real-life superhero, but that was simply me skimming over it, and I believe that video was only like 11 minutes. This will be, if I can pull it off, the highly detailed version of Why I Am What I Am. It will be much longer and possibly the longest video I ever do, depending on how long I do this introduction. Let's get started. 5 years old. I was obsessed with getting abilities. That was one of my main things. So it didn't even start out as a crime-fighting thing. It started as, I want abilities, I want to be able to use abilities, the types of abilities that I see in comic books and TV and all these other media. I want that. And, you know how all kids kind of go through that kind of thing, where you imitate Kamehamehas and stuff like that? It was much more serious for me. I wanted the real-life equivalent of what I could get. And I looked over the internet. I was actually had my own computer at that time, very early on, and I was like, ah! And around, like, I think when I was 5, still 5, there were these YouTube videos. There were a lot more YouTube videos than I see now about chi manipulation. And there was this one guy who did a bunch of chi manipulation videos, and I couldn't stop watching them. And that's how I got into Tai Chi and Qigong. And I did that up to when I was 7. What I really liked about chi was that I could feel it, and even though I couldn't really see it, I knew it was there. Also, I could tell other people about chi, and even if they were skeptical at first, all I'd have to do was tell them how you manipulate chi, and watch their expressions as they felt the different pressure changes and how they could feel the energy stretching and they could feel different temperatures in their hands. They understood what I was doing, and I even got a few friends in my neighborhood to actually get into Tai Chi and Qigong. So that was a big thing, but around when I was 7, I was experimenting with chi, and I felt like a really bad presence, and I left it alone. So I was off of chi for like a few years. From 7 to 10 years old. Around 10 years old, I once again got on my journey of trying to find an ability for me to have. So I had left chi behind, and I was looking for something new, a new ability that I could get. And instead of looking up superhuman or psychic, in trying to find people who had abilities in real life, I typed in real life superhero, because I was thinking a person with abilities seemed to always be a superhero in media and stuff, so I thought that was perfect. And that is how I ran into Razorhawk, Citizen Prime, Superhero, Geist, and Zimmer. Those were like my main inspirations for becoming a real-life superhero. I saw all their different information online, and I was kind of hooked. Most of those people I would never end up talking to, though. Only 2 people out of that list. Zimmer on Facebook briefly, and Superhero I still keep contact with to this day. They're all great, though. I enjoyed looking at a lot of their stuff, and I was hooked. I actually had a purpose now. Once I discovered that you could become a real-life superhero, I decided that when I got my abilities, when I found that ability that would stick with me, I would use it to protect people. I'd use it to make a difference. And this is how I was going to do it. I was going to become a real-life superhero. But you could say I'm impatient. I didn't wait to get an ability. I decided that I was going to go out and I was going to do it now. I don't need abilities to make a difference. This is just another reason for me to get abilities, but it's more than that. I want to make a difference now. I want to protect the innocent. I want to do what's right. So I started doing patrols, and this is before I had the Rocky City Relish behind me. So I was mostly just reporting vandalisms, and I would help people on the street if they needed anything, like helping people load groceries and stuff like that. Like, if you parked and you were taking groceries out of your car, I was like, can I help you? And it was like, sure. And then you help them out. odd jobs and stuff like that. Just when you notice someone may be having trouble with something, you go and help. And then reporting vandalisms, I found that our sheriff department allows you to report crimes anonymously. So whenever I'd run into graffiti on the street, I'd type up the street corner where I saw graffiti onto the thing, and I'd say vandalism here or whatever, and I'd send that in. I did that for a while, and then on my quest to find abilities, I typed in self-hypnosis, and I learned about self-hypnosis. I found one particular method that was a mantra, and in using this mantra, I somehow developed exomental projection, the ability to not only go into your mind, but to go into other people's minds and see their different fears and emotions as entities that can be talked to as well as combated. And I learned about domains, which are how the things in your mind are actually dimensions in the astral realm that have different rules and things. And I learned about guardians, which are the people who look over your domains and stuff. And that could be a whole video on itself, me explaining all these things. And I got into that, but I only went into 3 different people's minds. I never went into more than 3 people early on. Not until my freshman year of high school did that really kick off. I went to my friend Andrew's mind, my dad's mind, and my own mind. My friend Andrew once or twice, my dad a couple times, and me a lot. Learning about myself seemed very interesting from that perspective. Okay. Exomental projection was good, but I couldn't really use it for my crime fighting or anything. So, not saying that that ability was useless, but I kind of threw it to the side and moved on. At this point, we hit the Rocket City Relch. A group of my friends got into the real-life superhero thing, and they decided that why should I do patrols alone? We all live rather close to each other. Why not do patrols as a group? And the Rocket City Relch was formed, and I loved it. We were really big back then. It was near the end of middle school and near the start of high school, and we did a lot of things. It was still mostly reporting vandalisms. Of course, we helped that baby bird in the rainstorm, and we helped return the lost dog. And the Rocket City Relch is still going on, by the way. I'm still just talking about old things that happened. And at one point, one thing that never really got to appear in the videos because we didn't really get to do much with it, I learned that there was someone selling drugs in our community, and I was trying to figure out where that person lived, so I was able to send it into that anonymous sheriff thing, just their address, and have put drug dealer here. I pretty much just did that. Like, if I saw a crime, I put where it was, and then I put what it was, and said it was there, and then hoped the sheriff's department would do something about it. So, I found someone who lived in my community who bought drugs from the guy. Like, they did it quite often, actually. And it wasn't a bad person. It wasn't like that person, did anything wrong other than buy drugs illegally. Like, that's not cool. But pretty much the whole deal was they would try to figure out the person's name or where they lived, and then using that information they give it to me, and then I would give it to the sheriff department. However, that never went anywhere. My informant never told me the information that I needed, and I don't think it was on purpose. I think it was more or less the person that she talked to either used an alias, or that person just never would disclose that kind of information. And I understand that it would be hard to get that information out of that person, because they're not really trying to share that. They're just trying to sell their drugs. And also, my informant probably still wanted drugs, and they didn't want to have a harsh relationship with their drug dealer. Because, you know, if he's suspicious that my informant is trying to get him thrown in jail, she may not get drugs, and also my informant may just not have wanted to get information in the first place, and may have known information and just hid it from me because she still wanted drugs. But she seemed like a good person, and she seemed like someone who wanted to help, but that didn't go anywhere. I kind of wanted to share that because I never really did videos about it, like, at all. So there you go. A little bit of more information. Going past that, we're now into the freshman year of high school, and that is when I met a girl. She was into psychic abilities, and we had plenty to talk about because on my search for abilities, I learned a lot about psychic abilities. So it was like a conversation between two researchers and swapping information that we knew. And in the middle of our conversation, I ended up saying something like, "Oh, well, I have a psychic ability myself." And it was like, boom, discussion was on. She asked me a whole bunch of questions about what mental projection was, and that led to her giving me a challenge to go into her mind and solve a riddle. That riddle took me my entire freshman year of high school and had me do mental projection every night. That was a hard riddle. And it was custom, like I couldn't look it up online or anything, and it wasn't even really words. It was labyrinths and crap. But I learned a lot more about mental domains and how your mind is in the astral realm. I learned that the rules of a mental domain differ from mind to mind, depending on whether or not a person is a high controller. And again, I can talk about mental domains all day, so let's not do that and finish this video. So, Rocket City Relish is still going good, and to be honest, it's still going good up to present day, so we can just say that now. And I finally solved the riddle, and now I was ready to kick it up into high gear. I found out about the oracles back when I learned about Razorhawk, and the oracles kind of piqued my interest a little bit. You think they would leave a lasting impression, but it was just a MySpace page. Like a lot of the other people had videos or written descriptions of their patrols. Geist had a really good written description that was dark and really made you think about whether or not you wanted to become a real-life superhero, because it's like, it's really serious, and if you're going to do it, you should know that danger is an occupational hazard. You're gonna run into it. It's not all fun and games, and I really learned that from looking at some of the stuff that Geist had written. Because back then, not everyone did video patrols. It was like, you go to a website, and people had blogs where they wrote everything, and they were really long blogs. And I used to be able to read those, but now I can't do it. I'm like, why don't you just sit in front of a camera and just say it? Because the blogs are like, but regardless of that, getting derailed, I learned about the oracles based off of their MySpace page, and that is how I learned about Foxfire. I learned about this all back in the day when I was like 10 years old, and I learned about Razorhawk in them. But they didn't really pique my interest, but they stayed in the back of my mind to where when I was a freshman in high school, and I said, maybe I need a mentor, someone who knows abilities who can teach me, because right now I'm trying to self-teach myself, and I still only know chi, manipulation, and mental projection. I'm not really getting anywhere. So I find the MySpace page, I find Foxfire. Facebook was now out. It's been out for a while, but I don't know, MySpace was still pretty strong for a long period of time. And now they're doing a revival. I never thought I'd see that. But anyway, I'm old. Anyways, so I find Foxfire on Facebook. We start talking over Facebook, and then it turned into emailing, and she became my mentor. So I learned about magic. I learned that all the different creatures and myths and folktales and legends are real, and that they exist in the astral realm, because this is before I could just go into the astral world. Back then, I could only do it to go into people's minds, not to explore the entire astral world. Hadn't gotten that far yet. I learned about portals, dimensional entities, the basic framework to casting spells, things of that nature. And then Foxfire had to move. And when she moved, we lost contact for a long period of time. And during that period was a good portion of my summer vacation between freshman and sophomore years of high school. And I was like, what am I going to do? I'm back to just researching on my own. So I was looking for a secondary mentor Foxfire told me that magic abilities and psychic abilities were one and the same. They just used a different form of terminology. They called things different things. But they were all really talking about the same thing. With that in mind, I was looking for an online psychic community where I could find a mentor. Another thing Foxfire taught me was there's no such thing as coincidence, and the biggest non-coincidence ever, I found Wikia. A Wikia that only had like 47 or something pages. It had been abandoned a long time ago. And on the same day, myself, Jason, as he's commonly known, and Brandon went on Wikia on the same day, and we had no idea that this was the framework for like a good foreseeable future, but surprisingly short foreseeable future. Jason completely revived Wikia. We had a bunch of new people coming in, and we loved it. I came there originally to look for a mentor, and I noticed Brandon was doing the same thing. Brandon beat me to it. He ended up being mentored by Jason, and then when I asked Jason, Jason was like, I already have an apprentice, so it's too late. He said, once I'm done teaching Brandon, I'll teach you. And in the meantime, there were still like 47 pages on Wikia, and I pressed the random page button and just read up and did as much research as possible. During that summer, you could name a psychic ability and be like, what's acrokinesis? And I could be like, it's the manipulation of fear, like with psychic abilities. It was like a trivia game. I would win that if it was a game show. It'd be over. Have $1 million. And then give it to charity. Because that's what I do. Anyways, back to Wikia. We ended up creating a group. No. I keep saying we. Jason created a group on Wikia called the Order of Light. And the Order of Light was pretty much a group of psychics who used their abilities for good. And using their abilities for good, we would help the innocent and, be the good guys. And at the time, I thought it was really cool, but at the same time, I didn't wonder to myself why I didn't think of that before, since when I was 10, I decided that was practically what I was going to do, get abilities and help people. But for some reason, I've always thought of things as solo, and I needed other people to show up and say, we can be a group, and that's how groups and stuff start. So, I ended up joining the Order of Light, but none of us really had any abilities that we could use to help people yet, so all we really did was talk about helping people while we learned to harness our abilities. And that was about it. It was just a community of people learning from each other. Jason had to leave for a month, which left me in charge of the Order of Light. I took care of the Order of Light while he was away, but things changed, and when he came back the month afterward, I ended up leaving Wikia to create my own Wikia, known as Weird Community Wikia. And Weird Community was going to be about magic and psychic abilities. And even though they are the same thing with different terminology, the techniques also differ for doing the same things. And with such a good knowledge of all of those things, and not being able to really talk about them at Wikia, you can only talk about it using like the psychic terminology and the psychic techniques. They've expanded from that now, but back in the day it was very taboo to talk about things that weren't directly related to psychic abilities, which is part of the reason why I created Weird Community Wiki in the first place. So that was doing pretty good. I had a few people from Wikia come over to Weird Community Wikia, and I had new people come on to Weird Community Wikia, and that's still going great. At first, Weird Community Wikia was very rough, but I learned more about Wikia as I kept doing it, and now I've completely done the Wikia. There's still new pages all the time, but they give you a progress bar, and I finally got it to 100%. I've done everything that I'm supposed to do for keeping my Wikia up and running, and I'm happy. So, Weird Community Wikia was going great, and then I learned about the UJLA. The UJLA were the second real-life superhero thing I'd ever seen where they based themselves off of comic book superheroes, and they later became my inspiration to do Welsh Framework, the videos where I teach you how to become the real-life version of comic book heroes. But anyways, they were mostly based around Batman characters. Nowadays, they're based around a whole ton of DC comic characters. Like, they have Deathstroke and Arrow now, Green Arrow, pretty much, a part of their team, as well as other people. I think there's a Flash now, but I'm not sure. Anyways, UJLA, I was very it's hard to say inspired, because I was already out doing stuff, but it gave me an idea, I guess you could say. Like the Order of Light, I wanted to create a real-life superhero team, but it was going to be made up of teenagers. And again, I have trouble thinking of... Well, actually, this is the reverse. I had grown out of my solo thing that I kept doing, and I was thinking now that I always had to be a part of a group, which is just as worse to be the opposite of solo, to think you have to be a part of a group. So I was thinking my teen group of real-life superheroes would be a part of the UJLA as a junior team. And the reason I thought about this was because I told people on Weird Community Wikia that I come from a real-life superhero background. That before I came to Wikia, I was working on all this stuff to help become a real-life superhero who used paranormal abilities. And they were all like, well, that gives it purpose. We could all do that. And people were thinking of names, people were thinking of how they're going to get suits together, and we were all about to independently be real-life superheroes. And I was like, I've been here before, where I was going to do solo, and I'm like, hey guys, what if we became like a sub-team to an already grown real-life superhero team? And they were like, that would be an amazing idea. Went to talk to Matches Malone, who's the leader of the UJLA. We talked for a long time. Some of the members of the UJLA came down to Weird Community Wikia. We had talks on chat. But it ended up being that the UJLA thought it would be irresponsible for them to condone young crime fighting. And they told us that we're free to try to join their team when we turn 17 or so, the appropriate age. And then once we turn that age, we can join the UJLA. So it really wasn't a bummer, to be honest, because that's when I had the sense to say Order of Light didn't have to be a part of a larger group, so why do we? And the Teen Oracles were born. Pretty much all the people who said, we want to join a junior UJLA, were completely on board with having our own team of paranormal teenage real-life superheroes. And here we are today, the Teen Oracles. We're still here, still proud, still strong. We did a ton of missions involving astral projection, traveling to other universes via quantum jumping, and fighting entities that one summer to fill a lifetime of stories. We have an adventure log on the Teen Oracles page that shows all the good deeds we've done throughout other dimensions and other universes, and it's long. It's like those long blogs I told you about. And I always feel happy when I read the adventure log, because I just remember when I was younger and I was reading like Geist's blogs and other real-life superheroes blogs, and how it showed me what it was like from like a deep perspective. And I just like the feeling to be able to do that for like the next generation of crime fighter. So Teen Oracles going great, and by this point I think we're at my sophomore year of high school. More Rocket City Relsh, more Teen Oracles, but with the added boost of avatars, aka servitors. They're known throughout the energy manipulation community as being able to create a construct of energy that can follow you around, and it has a name, and you can call on it, and your servitors can actually have psychic abilities themselves. Pretty much in my engineering class, I just told everyone about avatars, and I started teaching people how to make energy constructs and stuff, and I had one table of people who sat in my engineering class, and we all had constructs, and it was a blast. We got into the real-life superhero thing as another local group, but the whole focus of this group was how can we combat crime without doing patrols? I was still doing my whole Rocket City Rush thing, and I still am to this day, but we were thinking, what if we sent the avatars to do it? And that's what we did. I don't really think we got that much done with that method, though. This is before Astral Earth was around, where you could send an avatar to an astral world that was connected to Earth, and the way they affected people on Astral Earth would affect them on physical Earth. And because Astral Earth didn't exist at the time, I mean, we were just sending them out there with the hopes that they were making a difference, without any real knowledge of whether or not their energy could really and truly affect a criminal to the point where we knew it would stop them. We did know, however, that it could affect people. Oh crap. To be a group of superheroes, we did so many pranks. We did so many pranks. And they were not nice pranks. Not nice pranks at all. One of my friend's constructs could manipulate gravity, and we did a thing where we made chairs out of cardboard in class, and your grade was dependent on how long the teacher could sit in your chair. But my friend kept making his construct increase gravity or decrease gravity depending on his friend's chairs. So people he didn't like, when the teacher was going to sit on the chair, he would snap his fingers, and the teacher wouldn't sit in that chair for more than a second. It would just collapse. It was messed up. We did a lot of stuff like that. And then sophomore years of high school goes by. Teen Oracles, still strong. Rocket City Rush, still strong. To this current summer that's going on here. And that's it. We've caught up with where I am today. I'll be 17 next year, eligible to join the UJLA, and a completely new chapter will open up to this video. So I hope you enjoyed this. This has been an introspection of Jet Black Real Life Superhero. Thanks for watching.